Howdy, Immortalium here. Today I thought I'd discuss something a little different from normal. I've heard many people talking about the fact that they love anime and manga, etc. because of the visuals. But something I'd like to discuss is the use of storytelling in anime and manga. And one of the things I found out, that I noticed in particular, was the use of melodrama in anime and manga. So I thought I'd discuss that a bit. Now, before I actually get into its use in anime and manga, I thought I would discuss the concept of melodrama itself. Melodrama is a literary trope. Basically, it was used in many classic, plays and novels, etc., like Shakespeare, Wuthering Heights, etc., in order to provoke a more emotional response from the audience. And it achieves this by using exaggeration. And because of that, the term melodrama, or melodramatic, seems to have developed a negative connotation here in the West. Like, for example, if you come out of a movie and someone asks you your opinion, you say it was melodramatic. What you mean is that it was, cheesy and that it wasn't well handled. Basically, what you're saying is a negative connotation. And I think that's kind of odd because of all the classic novels and plays and even classic movies that use melodrama. Besides that as well, something I found out was that over in the East, China, Korea, Japan, the melodrama genre is, apparently it's still in full bloom and everything. It's one of the most respected genres over there. There's apparently lots of, J-dramas or doramas, which use melodrama, and apparently, I haven't seen any of these, but what I've heard is that some Korean comedies use melodrama, so they have you laughing 1 minute and crying the next. Makes me think of anime a bit. But I just think that's kind of interesting. And of course, because of the fact that all this entertainment is being produced in kind of one kind of general sphere, of course, anime and manga is going to be influenced by that melodrama, isn't it? So I think now I'll discuss the use of melodrama within anime and manga. Now, of course, the first thing you think of in melodrama, I would say, is the romantic. A good example of that would be the shoujo manga, where, a lot of the plot of those series is romance, and in order to make it more emotional and more engaging for the audience, they use melodrama, which, that means they exaggerate it a bit. And of course, some people don't like that, but I think if it's used correctly, it can be very strongly emotional and, expertly handled. Like, a good example of that would be The Devil and Her Love Song, one of my favorite series, my fifth favorite manga right now. It uses melodrama, and I would actually argue it uses melodrama a little less than most other shoujo series, but it still uses it. And basically, a lot of those would be to do with the arguments of the characters, the way that they discuss what they should do, how they should handle other people. The expressions of the characters and their reactions and everything are exaggerated, I will admit that, but because of those exaggerations, it allows me to more emotionally connect with the characters, with their situation. It pulls me into the story much more, which I think is excellent. And it's something that appeals to me greatly. That is, of course, if it's handled expertly like it does in The Devil and Her Love Song. Now, there is a manga series that I'm not that keen on. It uses melodrama, and it doesn't handle it as well. Now, I know there are a lot of fans of this series, so do not criticize me for not liking this series. It's simply a series that just doesn't work for me, and that is Blackbird. I've read the first 2 volumes of Blackbird. I gave it a go. I read 2 volumes of it. I did stop at the first one. I thought maybe it would get better, like some other series do. But I'm not that keen on it. I didn't really like it. I didn't enjoy it. And the reason for that is, well, among other things that I can think of, is the fact that the characters' reactions do not seem realistic. And that is an issue with melodrama. If the characters' actions go way too out there, you are not going to be emotionally connected to them. You're going to think that they're acting stupid. You're going to not be able to relate with them. That is an inherent flaw with melodrama. I will admit that. So, just because of the fact that, you know, it doesn't work in that series doesn't necessarily mean it doesn't work in other series. As I said, I think it's expertly used in the Eleven Love Song, and I'm reading another series right now, Sand Chronicles, use melodrama again, and I think it's expertly handled, and I'm really enjoying that series. Now, all I've talked about so far is romance, and that's the most obvious use for melodrama. But I would like to point out that there is another use for melodrama, and that is sadness, in order to make you feel sorry. Now, I'm actually watching, I should say, One Piece right now, and I've just done, what was it, the Tony Chopper kind of backstory, and the use of melodrama there is quite strong. Basically, the reactions of characters, their actions, everything about it is melodramatic, but because of that, it's actually quite emotional. I was very touched by the story of Tony Chopper and his, you know, relationship with Hero Luck and everyone. So I thought that was another case where it was expertly handled and it wasn't necessarily, you know, used in romance. In fact, I don't think there was any romance at all in that arc. So, you know, it was just plainly used for sadness. So, you know, I thought that was pretty interesting. I mean, of course, I don't even need to speak about how that could go wrong. I mean, you know, unrealistic, you would just go completely, you'd switch off. Another one now, I'm thinking, and this one I'm looking forward to talking about, Code Geass and Death Note. Now, the use of melodrama in those is not necessarily for sadness, and not necessarily for romance. It is used for sheer awesome. And one of the things I just want to point out is any of those scenes where you're seeing Lelouch as Zero, where, like, for example, let's talk about Lelouch's first entrance as Zero, where the, you know, rebels come across him, you know, in the train, and he's just has this, like, you know, this mask on, and he has this cloak and everything, and he comes back and he's kind of presenting himself very theatrically, and it is just completely exaggerated and completely over the top, but man is that cool, and man is that awesome. And of course, I think no one will forget in Death Note, you know, I'll take a potato chip and eat it. Again, in those series, the use of melodrama is to make you feel like these characters are completely awesome. Sure, it's not as well handled as it always should be in Death Note, I should say, particularly in the latter half, which I still enjoy. I'm not saying I don't like the last half. I'm just thinking the last half is not as well handled as the first half. Code Geass, though, I think it was able to use that melodrama perfectly throughout the whole thing. And in Code Geass, actually, Code Geass is a great example of melodrama when I think about it, because you have your sadness, you know, aspects of it, the use of melodrama for sad. You have your use of melodrama for cool, as I just pointed out, and you have your use of melodrama for romantic. So, you know, for example, Shirley. So, I'm thinking, you know, if you need to see a reason why melodrama can be used very positively and expertly, just watch Code Geass. You know, that's a perfect example of the use of melodrama. I guess I should say, in conclusion, melodrama is something that I think has been kind of lost in the West, and it's one of my draws towards anime and manga. But it's something I've never heard talked about. I don't really hear anyone online going, you know, oh, I love anime and manga because it's melodramatic, because I'm able to emotionally invest in the characters and their struggles and situations. You know, I just think that's a bit odd, you know, so I thought I'd point it out, make you guys think about the use of melodrama and maybe some of your favorite series. Because, you know, it is an essential part of one of the appeals, I'd say, of anime and manga. I'd say, like, what I'd love you guys to talk about in the comments below is favorite series that you're kind of, you know, you think back on, and you might think about a character's backstory, or maybe a relationship with another character, and you might realize, I thought it was completely and utterly awesome because of the melodrama. And I'd like to hear, you know, your examples of that. Like, you know, give me a scene from a series or something. So, I just thought I should point that out. I think it's something important that people should be aware of, you know, and of course, it prepares you for, if, you know, like I've heard several people I associate with criticize anime and manga because of the fact they find it too melodramatic. So, you know, it's just something important to be taught about. So thanks for watching. Don't forget to comment, rate, subscribe, and bye-bye.